about 16 years old. My parents took me and two of my best friends over to Camino Island State Park. And, that's in Washington State. And it's right there on the water. The ships would go by and, all the tugboats would go by at night and all that stuff. We had a high-powered flashlight. So we just started, signaling. And, a fishing boat ran aground because of what we did. Boy, I tell you, I got in a lot of trouble. And my parents had to pay a lot of money on that one. But
wow.
What I'm trying to say is if you're out there with a high-powered laser, you don't know what you're signaling at. Again, I always tell people, we don't know if they are friendly. Remember what Stephen Hawking said? We shouldn't be giving out our address, okay? So you're out there, right? And now you're flashing a high-powered, laser at what you think is a UFO. Well, what happens if they respawn and zap you? Or even worse, you all of a sudden are like Tim Cullen. You're abducted, and maybe you're one of the lucky ones. You don't get the implant. You just don't come back.
Wow. Yes. Well, you're exactly right. The caveat, of course, is if you're using any kind of a laser like that, you need to know exactly what you're doing with it. Matter of fact, what we do as well is we have our various applications on our phones that will tell us exactly what is flying overhead at that time, whether it be the International Space Station, a commercial or military jet, or anything that is known will show up on these apps if you've got the right ones. Of course, anything that doesn't show up, you want to be careful as well, just like you're saying. Who knows what it is and what their intention would be if they found you.
You never know. And it also could be a military flight, that is scrambling their signals for you can't pick them up or identify what they are. Again, if you're taking that laser, you know that if it is, and you shine it into a cockpit of a plane, if it's high enough power, it can actually do, some damage to the pilot's eyes. And not just that, I mean, you could get in a lot of trouble. So again, at the worst case, that's one of the better case scenarios. The worst case is you shine it at a UFO, and maybe it's like one of Nancy, from Kashmir's.com, says that there's some that are not friendly that are supposedly working with our government that actually are cannibals. So, I mean, you might be out there in the woods or out there on that farm shining one out there, and you're saying, hey, here's free dessert. Come and get me.
And, of course, the other night we were actually talking about the very small number reported, but the human mutilations out there that could be attributed to UFOs, not just cattle as well. So you're exactly right.
Well, it's strange, like that one, one where the guy was pretty much nothing left to him. You have to think about when a couple of those hit the news, all of a sudden the first Predator movie came out very shortly. So maybe that gave somebody an idea to come out with the Predator series.
Yeah, there's definitely some connection with the Hollywood scripts and whatever agenda they want to put out there for sure. There's the whole extremes. There's Close Encounters of the Third Kind and E.T., and then there's the Predator series and all those shows like V and strange Twilight Zone episodes, let alone the X-Files. So there's all sorts of gamut out there that they actually try to put out there, and I believe it's kind of confuse people and kind of keep them afraid of doing anything at this point.
I don't know. Like I've been saying for days, I really think, or actually for the past month, I think something is about ready to go down the river, and I think we're going to find out shortly. Something is up. I don't know what it is, but it's just funny. All of a sudden, the government is kind of reversing itself on UFOs slowly, and that could be good or it could be bad. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. There definitely seems to be some kind of an agenda being pushed at us very, very quickly compared to the slow drip disclosure that has been happening over the last 70 years or so. since potentially Roswell, New Mexico, and Maury Island, state of Washington. There's always been the stories of the men in black, contacting witnesses and telling them not to say anything, and the military kind of poo-pooing the whole issue. But not any longer. When the New York Times article came out last December, interviewing the Department of Defense officers and the Pentagon officials, and they actually confirmed the existence of UFOs for the first time in history, there's something definitely going on.
Well, that's the whole point. We got to find out, if they are friendly or not. How many years have we been, sending out a signal, giving our address, to the universe, to let them know where we live. Hawkins, I think, was smart. I mean, why would you advertise where you live? We don't know if they're going to be friendly or not. Or they could be friendly aliens out there. Then they can be, like I said, a whole bunch that aren't friendly. Just like we have countries on this world that are friendly and then not friendly, and we don't know if it could be a warrior race of aliens or the other ones that are, want to come here and give us flowers and honey and milk. I don't know.
Yes, and exactly. It only takes one negative alien race probably to ruin our entire day. So, it's a kind of a
more than one day
we're in.
Yeah, well, as long as it's not like you brought up a couple of weeks ago, the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where somebody sits there and says, "Oh, the Earth isn't away. Push the button. Hey, it's not there anymore." I don't know. I just look at our civilization and how we treat one another and all that stuff. So if you have an alien race that's been monitoring us for a period of time, maybe they come to the conclusion that maybe we shouldn't even be around. I don't know.
Yeah. I would hope that they have the good television shows that reach them first, rather than the war movies and those kinds of things that would show our negative side. That those signals are going out into the universe and running across alien races who are trying to decide if we're good or bad ourselves.
Oh, wow. Hey, I just so busy here talking to you, Michael. We're getting a whole bunch of text messages from people coming up on my screen, which I'll be honest with you, because I run the network all by myself, and I run your show, host your show, or Kevin's show. I have to look at all these different computers and monitors and all this stuff while I talk. And I kind of have a tendency to not notice that. So I want to say hi to Renee. And can you go a little bit longer? I feel a little bit better. So I announced I was only going to do an hour show, but I maybe can do an extra half an hour. Once my mouth gets going, you know how it is. I should have been an attorney. My mom said either I should have been a priest, which I was Protestant, or I should have been a lawyer. And, I figured 6 months of pre-law was long enough for me when I went to college, and that was the end of it. But,
good for you.
And I didn't want to be a priest, so here I am, a talk show host.
I think that's a good middle road right there. Between a lawyer and a priest, be a talk show host, and especially a paranormal talk show host.
Well, I've always been in the paranormal, like when I started my broadcast career. I got out of my training at school and all that stuff. And then, you list yourself with Washington State Association of Broadcasters, and then what station's going to hire me? And, I have to say, I worked for some of the major stations in my life, and I worked with some stations that, if you could be heard down the end of the street, you're doing good. But one of the very first shows I did was up by Battleground, Washington for a radio station. And they said, hey, we want you to do a unique show. And now this goes way before Art Bell was, coming into doing paranormal. And I said, well, what do you want me to do? And they said, well, there's a cult around here of witches, and there's sacrifices going on and people missing. So I said, okay, let's do a show on kind of like the paranormal type of thing. And I did that for about 6 months at that station. And that's what really got me hooked into it.
I'll bet. That would be quite a subject to pick up when... This was probably back in the 70s when you did that, I understand.
Oh, yeah. That was probably around 1976. Yeah, now everybody's going to know how old I am. I am really old.
Yeah, you still have that iconic voice that will live forever, Gary.
Yeah,
I just love it, and I'm so glad you're back on the air like Art Bell wanted you to be.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I sat there, after I retired, I owned a couple businesses, and they didn't make it, and we decided to close them up. And I, being retired, the only thing I actually had to do anymore was ride my motorcycle and do the dishes and vacuum the house for the wife when she was at work. And I was getting really bored. And Art said to me, he goes, look, AM and FM radio is dying, Gary. It's dying. You need to get in to internet radio now. And, we had a long talk, and he called me up a few times, and he kept saying, you need to do it. You need to do it. Guess what? I did it. And, the first month, like I told you before, I was so depressed. I get on, and I have to be honest with you, I was off air for quite a few years, so I was really rusty. And, and I had to find myself again, which is really hard to do when you're a big guy. But anyway, I found, that, the first couple of weeks, I had 4 or 5 listeners. And, I called up Art and I said, Art, this isn't working. And he goes, well, don't tell anybody. But when I went to, my show on the internet, we only had, maybe a few hundred the first couple nights and stuff. He goes, wow. Give it time, and then, all of a sudden, the whole trick is you got to be on a lot of apps and word of mouth. And then all of a sudden now I'm being, heard everywhere. And, I just I brought you onto the network and created the network just for you and Kevin, because I really think you have something that needs to be shared with. The same with Kevin and the same thing with me.
Well, I am just honored to be on the network with you at Night Dreams Talk Radio. Matter of fact, Gary, you're a very humble man, and I just got to make sure that I put this out there because you have this voice that is so easy to listen to and so compelling for folks. Matter of fact, I call it a cross between Orson Welles and Mr. Rogers.
Well, thank you.
Gary Tombstone Anderson.
Well, it could actually be deeper, I can do that, but, or I could go 95 KJR or 85 KTAC. You're listening to Rick Stevens. It's now 20 after the hour. Yeah, those days are long gone. I like talking to people. And, that's what I like about doing this show, The Paranormal. I believe everything that a guest tells me? No, I don't. Do I believe some of them? Yeah. But I really think people need to get their stories out. And then I leave it up to the listeners, to make a decision if they believe the person or they don't believe the person. Or I can say it's simply entertainment. And what better entertainment can you get where you use your mind, not watching the boob tube?
Exactly. The theater of the mind. I just enjoy radio and the way you do it, late night, talk radio, and the subjects that we get to discuss on your network are just incredible. These are the subjects that people want to hear about. Matter of fact, this is the second most watched and interested in subject on the internet, the paranormal.
Oh yeah.
We won't go into the first most popular, but the second most popular is paranormal, UFOs, Bigfoot, ghosts, and everyone is talking about them.
Oh, yeah, more than ever. That's one thing I did do, before I won't go into all the details like with me and Art, but, I did go and listen to hundreds of, talk shows on the paranormal before I decided to go ahead and do it. And you know what? How can I say it? I believe the paranormal should be done the way Art Bell did it, or the way I did it when I first